on the Lloyd Triestino of Malta, the 26th of August 1938. Dear Mother, Nance's letter of the 25th of July was awaiting me at Port Said. The enclosed letter confirmed my opinion that Angela is a person of rare perspicacity. Carol's cold seemed to have created quite a furor at home, as Nance had already written me 2 letters about it. Probably a third impression is already on its way. You should already have received from me 3 letters and a postcard. In my last letter, I told you that I did not react very strongly to Colombo. I bit deeply into Cairo, however. We disembarked at Suez. Then, after a 3-hour drive around the town, a 3-hour car run across the desert to Cairo, passing on the way a monument to the Italian aeroplane, which mysteriously exploded in the air half an hour out from Cairo, with half a dozen high army officials just prior to the Abyssinian campaign. It was alleged that the plane had been tampered with, and the occurrence was used by the Italians as one of their pretexts for commencing operations. I believe that the officials were to make final reports and preparations. About 8 in all made the trip to Cairo. All, except one of the doctors and myself, made conducted tours. We arrived at a pub, showered, and then went for a walk around the town, the doc and I. Saw all the places that were the scenes of the depredations of the Australian troops. The legends have grown amazingly in the course of years. The 2 of us then had a dinner at a first-class open-air French eating place in the best part of the city. The food and service were excellent. I had peach melba and iced fruit, and for the next 3 hours watched an amazingly colourful kaleidoscope of life in a respectable quarter. Next to us were 2 young French civil servants, fresh skins and fair moustaches, entertaining their girlfriends. Absurdly enough, one of the lasses' reaction to a conjurer was, "Oh, how awful a funner." Behind them was an English Paka Sahib entertaining 2 other Pakas to dinner. The host forgot to bring some money, so I had to call over the maitre d' of the hotel in a lordly way and arrange to send a cheque along the morrow. On the other side of us were 2 wealthy Egyptians, one with splendid ascetic features that rendered rather ridiculous the cheek and lordliness of the Paka Sahib, and so on. The footpath and street were a dense throng of people, Egyptians of all classes, English, French and Greeks, dogs and goats, carriages and cars. The evening was cool and clear, and the air full of those moans and wails and wheezes that evidently constitute Egyptian music, and which I had thought were merely foreign caricatures of the real McCoy. You expect gliding snakes to materialize out of the air at any moment. And then there was a succession of performers on the footpath, a native with a performing goat and monkey, a strolling musician, a fire eater, a conjurer who did amazing tricks, a fakir who lay down on a spiked mattress in the middle of the road, bringing all the traffic to a standstill. And then the picture theatre opposite would open its doors and disgorge a new swarm of natives, talking and gesticulating and guitarally crooning. All this cross-section of life was revealed in a sort of square which we were directly facing, and one felt that one was completely absorbed in a new oriental world. It was a Sunday night, and the city seemed to have become alive. On our way back to the hotel, some amazing juxtapositions. A street full of Egyptian, Arabic and Greek signs, and then suddenly a poster of luscious Joan Crawford advertising, "I live my life." I had the wanderlust, so I left the dock at the hotel at about 11 p.m. and wandered around the less respectable portions of the city until 2 in the morning. It was an amazing experience, a veritable Ulyssian Volpoknoch. I can't pronounce it. Volpoknoch. Here the streets are merely alleyways about 8 foot wide, intensely alive with people in all attitudes and occupations, now brilliantly lit, now illit. It was an intense section of prolific native life. The lanes, which probably were dead in the heat of the day, quickened in the cool of the night and afforded an amazing display of emotional release, an effect of absolute spontaneity, of singing and running and shouting, and above all, laughing. Processions and fights formed and unformed on the spur of the moment. Always a throbbing undercurrent of rhythmical music, moans and wails that got you. A native, maddened by drugs, would push past, held by a dozen others. Everything was accentuated. The tempo increased as the night wore on. I wandered mile after mile, ignored as long as I did not betray too obvious an interest in proceedings. In that case, suspicious looks from all directions, so wisely sauntered on. Saw only one other European the whole night, so you can be sure I kept a weather eye on the native policemen who were scattered around every 30 yards or so. The place is full of unrest, so ran into small squads of native police marching and manoeuvring at most unexpected places. The European I met was a French police officer. Had come across a ragged procession heralded by much noise, banging of drums and clashing of cymbals in two parts. In the centre of the first was, I could decipher, a young man surrounded by garlands and a jostling throng of youths who seemed to be enjoying it more than the principal, and the second part centering around a lass, ditto. At regular intervals the procession would stop, the two parts coalesce, and a sort of master of ceremonies would intone certain words. The couple intone a response, and the chorus would then join in. Several native police on the outskirts would be half-heartedly moving the crowd on, and with the other half of their nature eagerly taking part in the ceremony. Suddenly, a resplendent white uniform appears from nowhere, and immediately the native police vociferously urge on the procession, spring to attention, salute, and then proceed volubly to give an account to the officer who cuts them short. I wanders across to him and ask him what's it all about, and gather after half an hour's talk it's a prenuptial procession. At least that probably is my hypothesis, which I verified to my own satisfaction from the few scraps of French I was able to follow. To be continued.